Hello, everybody. It's Thursday night, and we asked that question, Amelia.
What's the buzz?
What's the buzz indeed? It is Thursday, and we are here for a very, very special episode tonight, the Black Dahlia murder case. If you are not familiar, and in case you're living under a rock somewhere, let me just tell you, this is one of, probably, if not, the most infamous unsolved murder in all of U.S. history. The case of Elizabeth Short, a promising would-be actress, cut down at the age of 22. When I say cut down, I'm not being facetious when I say she was literally cut in half. And that's how they found her. In fact, it was a woman and her child walking found Elizabeth Short. They actually thought, Amelia, that it might have been like a mannequin or some.
Correct.
Yeah. So tell everybody the mannequin angle. Talk to us.
Yeah,
By
they
the way,
had.
folks, this is Amelia Pitbull Chapman. I forgot to even introduce you. Well, I went
They,
right into the show.
that's okay. Everyone should know us by
She's
now,
my
right?
producer and my co-host, Amelia Pitbull Chapman.
Hello,
And
everyone.
so, go ahead. So the whole mannequin angle. This whole case is so bizarre.
Yeah, and we're gonna get very explicit, guys. So just to let you know ahead of time. So if you don't have a strong stomach, just to let you know ahead of time,
Yes.
this is very graphic tonight. Actually, when they found her, the mother and daughter found her, it was so graphic that it looked like it was a mannequin or a big doll laying the way they had.
Yeah.
It looked like it was a professional job. The way they had her laying down, it was looked like a mannequin they had gotten from a big warehouse, or it could have been from a big store like Macy's. You know how they have the mannequins laying straight, the way they had her laying down, the legs and everything, because she was nude, and the body, the way it was laying, you would be able to tell as you got closer there was no blood, and horrific. And the back of it looked like it was just no clothes, and very, very thin person. You could tell right away it was a woman,
Yeah.
and it looked fake, basically, the way they
Yeah.
had her.
The other thing that is particularly gruesome about this case is that Elizabeth Short was bisected at the waistline. And if you don't know what bisected means, it means she was literally cut in half.
Yes.
And so let's just, I want to warn people, and I have more, oh God, you should see what I went through. I have more legal disclaimers for this show tonight than I care to know about.
Mhm.
Probably 5 or 6 of them.
I
Uh,
could not watch a lot of them. I had to have a bucket nearby when I was starting to see the
yeah,
pictures.
it's pretty,
Uh-huh.
yeah, it's rough.
It is,
Pretty
and this
gruesome
is not
stuff.
for the faint at heart. For anyone that has a bad
Yeah.
heart, I would not
Yeah,
recommend
it's
watching these.
really not
No,
for the faint. It really isn't.
no.
So let me just tell everybody, and I have to give everybody a little inside, kind of like a little inside baseball here. I always kind of rag on Amelia for having lots of notes, and I do, because I said, "Well, you
He
carry so many
does.
notes for," right? Here I am. I'm doing an Amelia today,
Yes.
because I've got like 13 pages right here just on the
Yeah, he
Dahlia.
does. Look at that. He accidentally.
So let me tell everybody about the case here. So on the morning of January 15th, 1947, a mother and child walking down a Los Angeles neighborhood, it was actually Hollywood Boulevard, stumbled upon a gruesome sight. They found the body of a young naked woman sliced clean in half at the waistline.
Remember,
The
clean,
young,
clean.
yeah, sliced clean.
Hmm.
The young woman turned out to be 22-year-old Elizabeth Short, a Hollywood hopeful, a wannabe actress. She was later dubbed the Black Dahlia by the press for her penchant toward wearing sheer black clothing. Also, there was a film at the time called The Blue Dahlia. It was a very popular movie at the time, 1947. Short's fingerprints actually appeared. Now, I was surprised to find this out, Amelia.
Mm-hmm.
Her fingerprints actually appeared in the FBI database not once but twice. The
Correct.
first was for the a arrest record that she had. I'm surprised to find this out. She got arrested for underage drinking when she was 16. She also had to have her fingerprints done because she applied for a government job um, with the U.S. Army at the time to work at the canteen.
Yes.
So now you have to be fingerprinted for that. At the time, and this really surprised me as well. Oh, here's Karen. Here's Karen Rayner. How are you, kid? Karen
I'm
Rayner's here.
great. You guys, you started early.
I started at 7:00.
It's 7:00 for me right now.
Oh, okay. Well, my clock said 7. I gotta go. So what happened was she was fingerprinted by the U.S. Army
Mm-hmm.
for a job at the canteen, and lo and behold, her fingerprint showed up in the database. So now, Karen, since you just popped in here, here's what we're telling people: how Elizabeth Short was found and how they ascertained her fingerprints.
Yes.
Just to fill everybody in, at the time, and I was really surprised to find this out, there were more than, and this is 1947, there were more than 100 million fingerprints in the FBI database. That was staggering to find out at the time. And then I thought about it. It makes perfect sense. Think about how many people at the time were in the military.
Correct.
Okay. World War I, World War II. Okay. We're talking about that's the time period. Everybody who enlisted was fingerprinted. Every guy for sure. And probably the women too, as far as I know. So that's where we are with the case right now. They've identified her body as Elizabeth Short. Question has always been, how'd she get there? Who put her there? Why was there no blood at the scene? And what was the motive for leaving her positioned the way she was? Well, there are, even today, more questions than answers regarding the Black Dahlia, but we do know quite a bit about what happened. In fact, we know so much about the case that it almost, on paper, overwhelmingly substantiates murder by a particular individual. However, there are 3 questions we can't answer: why she was placed there, who put her there, and who done it. Not necessarily the person that killed her put her there. She could have been killed in one place and transported by a completely different individual. For all we know, those are 3 questions that outweigh all the things that we know. And in that case, the majority doesn't rule. It's interesting, very, very interesting indeed. Karen, what is your take on the Dahlia?
So there's so many. The FBI files are available, and just part 1 of those FBI files has 162 pages that I started going through, and a lot of it was police officers and people witnessing the actions of other police officers and people that were on the scene. What you brought up about the body was clean, there was no blood. What was interesting is that there is an FBI file about the bristles that they found in her on her person, and they sent it for whatever they call forensic science back then.
Yeah.
Right.
Everything's relative, folks.
to identify them. There was so much information, and a lot of it, to be honest with you, on the FBI files, it's kind of garbage, because it's not really telling you much. It's kind of like, well, I witnessed, police chief, blah, blah, blah over here. And it wasn't very good. It's an odd case. definitely somebody, they we know they have issues, but
We
you know,
also need, Karen, we also need to consider the time
mhm,
period,
right.
and we must always, especially in this kind of a case, always we have to consider the location. It's
Mhm,
Hollywood.
mhm,
And Hollywood, despite what people may think, I can assure you, Hollywood is a very, very small, closed knit community.
yes.
If you're not in, you ain't getting in unless you know somebody, blow somebody, or show somebody.
And have
And
money
that's,
to pay somebody.
well, no, money doesn't even work anymore, Amelia.
Hmm.
It didn't work back then either.
No.
No.
It was the town was predicated upon sex. That's what it was, and that's what it is today. It's predicated upon sex, not money. People are mistaken when they think that Hollywood is predicated upon finance. It's
Yeah.
not. It's predicated upon depravity, sexual depravity in particular, and anything that's bizarrely outside the box. That's Hollywood.
Hmm.
That's what you pay millions of dollars a year to support when you watch a movie, when you turn your TV on, um, when you buy merch.
Yes.
That's what you're doing. You're making these sick fucks richer,
Yes, that's true.
you know?
But the depravity part of it, okay?
Mm,
If you were someone that could not be who you wanted to be,
yeah.
right? Because you had to put on that mask, put on that happy face, and back then, oh my God,
Mhm.
it was very white, very,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
clean, and
Sure.
they had this image that they had to uphold. So, I mean,
Mhm.
anything that they did that it might be commonplace today was considered,
Yeah.
depraved back
Oh,
then.
sure.
It was not a very free time to be, you
No,
know?
absolutely not. It was a bizarre time all around in
Mhm.
American history.
Right.
We'd just come out of a Second World War.
Hmm.
America was starting to feel pretty good about itself. Hollywood was getting back to making movies again, and they hadn't for quite a while. In fact, the only movies being made during the war were propaganda films, enlistment films, and films sponsored by and paid for by the government, like Stage Door Canteen, like the Stork Club, films like that.
Hmm.
This is the Army with Ronald Reagan. Um, Very interesting stuff. We have some people in the. Oh, here we go. We have. I want my slaw in the chat room. Yes, they made a movie of this, and they fingerprinted me as a 5 year old. They made it seem like I was a fun rite of passage. Interesting. Had I known it was going to into a database, I don't know if I would have been so consenting. Well, you're 5, so you don't have much.
Hmm.
This was 75 years ago. What was forensic back then? Karen, go ahead, take that one. What was forensic back then?
Oh, it wasn't. I mean, even the fingerprint cards back then. Now we can just, use a live scan and it's in millions of files and the computer's going to find it. Back then they had people that would stare at it with a loop and find all of the, intricacies, and that's how they would
Mhm.
match fingerprints. Um, the bristles on the brush, that was very interesting because I was
Yeah.
like, well, who's the expert they send it to? Or are they going to go out and just, find brush sellers? I mean, they did have them back then.
Mhm.
They had, people selling vacuums and brushes
Sure.
and all that to the housewives.
In fact, Karen, to stop you there for just a moment, I should tell people that the brush bristles were actually sent for examination to the Fuller Brush Company, which was the country's leading, in fact, only door to door. And that's how they used to sell brushes, folks. You ain't gonna believe it. You didn't walk
Mhm.
into a store and buy a brush. Somebody
Right.
came to your house and sold you one. Yeah, and I sound like the old fart in the room here, okay? But this is true. I know because they did it at my house. And I watched the Fuller brush guy come to the house. And I watched him demonstrate how the brush was amazing. So yeah, I mean, think about the time frame we're talking about. Fuller Brush, not the FBI. Fuller
Yeah.
Brush Company investigated the bristles. You can't
Right.
make this stuff
No.
up. Go ahead,
Mur-
Karen.
Murder was a lot easier back then too. I mean, you can find a drop of blood or
Oh,
test
sure.
DNA. I don't think it was until the 60s or the 70s that they started actually collecting DNA that
Yeah.
later on, when they actually had the technology, I think it was
Hmm.
sometime in the late 80s, early 90s, when they would start matching
Yeah.
those things up.
Yeah. The
So,
1980s is generally referred to as the birth of the DNA generation.
Mhm.
But you are
mhm,
absolutely right. DNA samples were collected from the early 60s onward.
mhm,
Um, had there been DNA collected in the case that we did Tuesday night, the George Reeves Superman case, we might now not be talking about the case, but we'd be talking about the killer of the case, of that actor, George Reeves. But the Dahlia case is interesting from a couple of perspectives. Amelia, give us a little bit of heads up with regard to the evidence found at the scene. Tell everybody what was found. Give everybody a sense of how the body was positioned. Tell everybody about that.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. They ended up finding the body pretty much with, of course, as you said, it was severed, and I hate to get kind of gross, but I'm going to go there.
Yeah,
They
we
had
have disclaimers all over, so go
Okay,
ahead.
they had ended up. Her mouth was cut from like here to here, pretty much, giving the Chelsea smile, as they say, is one of the things
Yeah.
where they had forced her to pretty much eat her shit, her feces,
Hmm.
yeah,
and they had cut out her vagina, and her pubic hair and everything was forced up there, I was going to say, and pretty much everything else, her intestines and guts were taken out, and her nipples had been cut out,
Yeah.
and pretty much her head was severed. Here they had pretty much had cut or had actually hit her head,
Hmm.
and it was a blow to the head,
Yeah.
and her anal area, it had I guess about an inch or two cut out, like if they had had sex, but luckily they said there was no semen found.
Yeah.
So, and then the way they had positioned her, as you said, earlier we talked a few minutes ago,
Yeah.
it was like in a mannequin. And
Well, and a lot of people don't quite understand why certain parts of her body, even the police didn't understand
they did
initially.
not. Mm-mm.
Why certain parts of her body were cut, like her breast tissue was cut, her nipples were left intact,
Mhm.
but the tissue next to her nipple area
Yeah,
was
yeah.
severed, was just like
very
clean out.
badly.
No
Mhm.
blood, by the way, not a
None
drop of
at all.
blood.
She was very clean. They knew
Yeah,
what they were doing.
very, very clean, surgically clean. That's why I think some guy had
A surgical
real
background,
serious
medical
medical.
background, or they knew
Absolutely.
somebody that was in the mortuary business, or they had a mortuary
That's been
background.
talked about, Amelia. We're going to talk about
Hmm.
that as well. That's been talked about. Perhaps it was a mortician, and
That's
they
what I was
actually had a
thinking.
mortician as a suspect. What we also need to understand is that when Amelia talks about uh, parts of Elizabeth Short's body being removed, her vaginal area, her intestines were completely removed from her body and stuffed underneath her buttocks, resting
Hmm.
basically her buttocks on her intestines. One of the things that was not revealed to the public at the time and did not come out till many, many years later was Elizabeth Short a prostitute or a call girl? No evidence to that end was ever found. There was no conclusive evidence, neither circumstantial, in fact, that she was ever a call girl. There were some rumors that she might have been
A flirt.
genetically altered, biologically altered, that she may have been a hermaphrodite, or she may have had infantile genitalia. I can tell you, based on the police record that I have here, that she did not have infantile genitalia. She was, in fact, a hermaphrodite. She had a male and female sex organ. That's why when you see some photos tonight, you're going to see some very, very graphic photos. You're going to see I want you to notice the incisions around the vaginal area, and specifically right above the vaginal area. I'm sorry, folks, but we've got disclaimers all over the place here. So I want you to understand this. I warned everyone, this is going to be a graphic case. So the murder created an immediate sensation, due in part to Short's body having been mutilated so horrifically, and the mystery of who would so savagely do this to another person. The nude and mutilated body of Elizabeth Short, the Black Dahlia, aka Black Dahlia, is found by a woman walking her 3-year-old daughter. Okay, this was on Hollywood Boulevard, a very young Hollywood Boulevard. It was still partly dirt road. It wasn't even paved all the way. Short's body was found bisected at the waist. That means it was a clean cut.
Very clean cut.
Her very clean, a surgically clean cut. Her blood was completely drained from her body. Her face was cut with a Glasgow smile, sometimes called a Chelsea smile. That means that the cheeks were cut from the mouth all the way up to the ears, kind of. And I'm going to tell somebody something tonight you may not know. This is absolutely true. If you want to check it, you can find out. In the movie Batman, the Joker, the smile of the Joker is based on the Black Dahlia's smile. You can't make this stuff up. An autopsy revealed marks to the wrist and neck, as well as bruises to her hands and face. Her official cause of death was determined to be a combination of beatings to the head and hemorrhaging from the mouth. She was bleeding profusely. Again, only dry blood was found. But based on what they found, with little to like no blood in her body, they had to say conclusively that she bled to death. That would be an easy, an easy assumption. Or somebody, quite frankly, bled her like a chicken. Like they literally cut her in half and hung both parts to dry, which I believe they did. In fact, I'm convinced they did. During the sensationalized media frenzy, many rumors and misconceptions about Short arose that she was a call girl, although no evidence existed. As I said a moment ago, she was never a prostitute. So let's get that out of the way. Elizabeth Short was never a prostitute. She was, in fact, a hermaphrodite. She was an actress. She was a woman who had dreams and aspirations of being a movie star. She was meeting some people at the time whom she thought maybe could help her. Karen, talk to me about some of the people she met.
I'm not sure, because the thoughts that I'm having coming through my mind right now, that this has some sort of religious
you wouldn't be the first person to say that.
That's she was,
yeah, because she was mutilated in sacrificial fashion.
Yes.
For people who don't understand what I'm talking about, her body was positioned in a very specific manner, quite deliberately. Amelia is going to tell everybody in a few moments the significance of that. But at the moment, we can assume, or at least presume, that Karen is right that there was some religious implication here. It's been talked about. It's been suggested. In fact, it's been implied that there was a religious connotation to the way the body was laying. Amelia, so go ahead and tell everybody about the specific positioning of the body. Also, tell people what was and what was not found.
Okay.
At the go ahead, so I'll let you go there.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, the way the body was laying down at the murder state of the body, who didn't know her really. Basically, the way it was found, it was like upside down, so you really couldn't tell who it was at first. And then the way they had found her is the only way they could tell that it was a woman at first and that it was a real person was that they had to flip her over, of course. And when they did flip her over, the way they had found the body, it looked like it had been, like you had said, in some kind of religious in some kind of religious sacrifice or something like that, because of the way they had found her and the way they had cut her, and in some kind of a religious cult. And the way they do that is they will do kind of sacrificing. They cut you a certain way, and then I found in the way they put candles, things like that, and then they cut you like near this way, like near the breasts, like that, and then they say, you know, religious things like that, and then of course they do the mouth like that, and then of course they blunt you.
Let me tell everybody, because I think it's important now to understand, because we're going to talk about some of the suspects in a moment. It's important to understand this. What Amelia and Karen are telling you is absolutely correct on both counts. I'm going to tie both of them together for you with one of the main suspects. She was found in a ritualistic pose. In the Philippines, for example, removing
drink the blood too. I forgot to tell you that.
Removing the skin from the body in particular areas is considered part of a fertility ritual. And skin does grow back and it does heal itself. The way they were positioned, this woman, and I want everybody to understand this. They found her face down. They found her bottom half face down. Her buttocks were in the air. Okay. And all they saw was the back of her head, the hair. When this woman and her 3-year-old daughter uncovered this grisly scene, Elizabeth Short was covered with a blanket that basically looked like a whole body laying there. When the police arrived and they removed the blanket, that was the moment that they found that she was cut in half. And you're going to see a picture of that tonight because we have it. We may as well just go right there. The Philippines, I think, are going to come in very heavily here. Part of a chastity rite in the Philippines is for particularly women, vaginal mutilation, and it happens today still, not only in the Philippines, it happens in Africa, it happens in Nairobi, it happens in Kenya. These are all places that mutilate the female vaginal area as a part of a fertility rite. Let's take a look. We're going to go, and I want to warn people, and you're going to hear some disclaimers tonight. What you are about to see is gruesome, it's graphic, and if you have anyone in your presence under the age of 18, I encourage you strongly to remove them from the room. You are about to see some very, very disturbing images. With that, let's go.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Okay, Karen, this was the headline in California at the time. Most notorious unsolved murder in California history. We would now, all these years later, say the Black Dahlia is the most notorious unsolved murder in the United States of America. But can you imagine, Karen and Amelia, the headlines, picking up that paper and realizing oh, I live in a state where this craziness is happening, and who's next?
I kind of do here in Florida. It did happen
Right?
a few years ago. Yeah.
This is Elizabeth Short. This is her headshot. This was a movie headshot that she did actually act as an extra in a
Mhm.
couple of films, and so she did have some camera time. Again, another headshot, different hairstyle, different pose, but you clearly see it's the same woman, and very pretty woman too, by the way.
Very.
You know, now I want people to understand that what you are looking at right now. And Karen, it's hard to imagine this, but she's 16 years old in this picture.
No, it's not hard to imagine because they've had studies about it. People back then, they looked a lot older.
Yeah, they
I
sure
have
helped.
pictures, when my father was in the music business, I had pictures of him at 22 years old, and he's got more crow's feet than I do, at 49.
Yeah.
People just looked older. I mean, yeah, it was a different time. Also, the life expectancy was a little different too.
Yeah, sure it was. That photo, by the way, is an FBI, and not an FBI. It's actually a Santa Monica.
That's her mugshot.
Mugshot.
Mhm.
She was arrested for underage drinking. She's 16.
Yep.
And that's one of the reasons they were able to find. Here you go. Here's the whole mugshot. It's funny that you look at her profile and she looks like a fully grown woman in her 30s.
Mhm.
But there's her fingerprint. That's how they found her, based on her fingerprint. This guy has been the subject of a lot of controversy, Amelia. You've been studying him.
Yes.
Tell everybody.
That's her fiance, Major Matthew Michael Gordon at the time.
Right.
That she met.
And he was, now correct me, Amelia, if I'm wrong, but he was considered an early suspect and he was questioned and released. Is that correct?
Well, I believe that I think he passed away or something like that before. I think as they were engaged in.
Oh, was he the one that died? Okay.
Yeah, he's the one that passed away, right? And then
Got
she
it.
moved to California.
Okay, got it.
Right before that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I remember that. Okay.
Yeah.
I knew she had connections with somebody who died. I wasn't sure if it was this gentleman, the Major. Best suspect yet in slaying of Black Dahlia. Okay, now you're going to see some other headlines about the Dahlia. Here is the photo I spoke of. Amelia, tell everybody who this gentleman is.
Isn't that the nightclub owner that we were talking about earlier?
Yeah, he was a suspect, again, questioned and released. There is the photo I spoke of, that the Dahlia had this blanket on her, this cover. When the police arrived and took that off, you're going to see what they found. Again, there's a picture of Elizabeth Short wearing, at that time, considered a fairly risque bathing suit. Today it would be passé. There were headlines every day, some multiple times a day. The gentleman you're looking at, a very interesting guy. His name is, I'm going to tell you right now,
George Hill Hodel.
George Hodel was a medical student / teacher who had an incredible knowledge of the human body, who specialized in a particular, and I'm going to make sure I read this right to you because it's a funky word that I don't know.
I know, I couldn't pronounce that word.
Yeah. There was he specialized in a procedure in med school, and it was called here it is. It was called a hemicorporectomy.
Thank you.
Hemicorporectomy.
I could not pronounce
It's a
that
medical procedure that slices the body beneath the lumbar spine.
There you
And
go.
that is precisely where she was cut.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Hodell's father had been a doctor who had attended medical school when this procedure was being taught in the 1930s.
1930s, yes.
So the guy, by the way, interesting, Karen, if you don't know this one, but George Hodell's son, Stephen Hodell, was a police officer with the Los Angeles Police Department. And when his father passed away, he naturally went into his dad's archives and went through some things and see what was there. Lo and behold, he came across a lot of stuff connected to the Dahlia, including handwritten notes. Interesting. That matched some of the notes written in the Dahlia case. Also, he had evidence that the police didn't have. He also had a wealth of pictures from Elizabeth Short's personal collection. No one knows how he got them, other than he would have had to been either in her company and received them from her, or took them post-mortem. What do you think?
Is there anywhere to see these pictures?
Well, you're going to see some of them tonight.
And he wrote a book about it. His son wrote a book about this as well.
Yeah, sure did. This is George Hodell. Dr. Hodell was an interesting character. And again, we're going through. And did you guys ever hear about this? I came across this headline, and I never heard of this before, that she was planning a trip.
Not that I know of. Maybe this was a last minute trip, maybe, perhaps.
Yeah. Trip planned by Slanger revealed Elizabeth Short sought to get information for Alaska. She was looking to go to Alaska. With the red-haired man she asked facts was the day before the murder, the witnesses say. So apparently the day before she gets killed, she's looking to go to Alaska. Karen, would you be wanting to go to Alaska if you needed to get away? Or how about you, Amelia? Alaska?
Not Alaska. I choose somewhere else.
Somewhere warm.
Somewhere
Right?
warm. I'll be going to the islands somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Okay. Immediately they started calling the slaying, referring to it as a sex crime. I want you to take a look at this again. Sex fiend slaying victim identified by fingerprint records of FBI. Now, nobody knows. In fact, we do know that there was no sexual intercourse. There was no sexual molestation. There weren't any sexual organs to say that she had been sexually abused.
Well, hold on. So we don't know, because they did swab it, but that body was cleaned. That body was scrubbed clean.
You're making my points for me. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So they don't know that, but it's also funny how they twisted it to make her the sex fiend.
That's what, and that's the thing. They made her they made the victim the victim.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
It's what they did.
Yes, they just flipped it. So
there were headlines everywhere. Every day there was a headline. Craziness.
Yeah.
Here you go. The Daily Mirror in England. This is an English newspaper. Someone knows who killed it. Look, the sensationalism of the headline. That's still around, by the way. That newspaper is still around today.
It's the UK version of the Inquirer.
Yeah, yes. And in fact, I will tell you that one of the tabloids was involved in this case, and it was a reputable newspaper at the time. It is today the National Examiner was a Los Angeles and still is a Los Angeles-based newspaper. It's a tabloid paper today, but it was a legitimate source of news back in 1947 and prior. So again, headlines galore. There's Elizabeth Short at age 13 and at age 18. So you're looking at her in various stages of development there. But she wanted to be an actress. Okay. Time to get a little graphic. So, folks, if there are small children, you don't want them to be here. This is Elizabeth Short post-mortem. This is the infamous Glasgow smile that we spoke about, also referred to as a Chelsea smile. It is also the basis for the Joker in Batman. You can't make it up. It's just absolutely real. You can check it out. This poor girl was absolutely decimated. Again, you're looking at a before and after. They had to open her eyes to do this. It's kind of a grisly scene, but back in the day, they often took pictures with the eyes open to get, a sense of what the individual looked like in life. Post-mortem pictures that Karen and I discussed on Tuesday. Post-mortem pictures are not just a thing to guile upon that are grisly. They are also a source of great education and information. So if you know what you're looking at, this, by the way, is an actual photo of the crime scene. You can see the body in the background. They are real detectives. They are real police officers. They are real cars from 1947. That is Elizabeth Short, a.k.a. the Black Dahlia, literally cut in half. Actually, where that police detective is standing, he's standing right in front of the severed part. And you're going to see more. Again, now you see the same shot from a different angle. Of course, more police and reporters. The remarkable thing to me, and I shake at the thought of it sometimes, is that the police and the reporters were gathering together, smoking cigarettes, smoking cigars, contaminating a crime scene. This is the case before we knew, evidentiary value of DNA and before we knew what contamination to DNA can do. But this is what police work was like. That's the body of Elizabeth Short covered with the blanket. That's how they found her. If you look at that blanket, Karen Rayner, you can clearly see the indent.
Yes.
Where the separation is. Amelia, do you see that?
Yes, I do. It's right
Okay.
there.
You can see her arm like this above her head. Okay. Her arms were placed like that above her head.
To make it look like one whole body.
And they were bent at the elbows. They could have placed her arms like this, but they were placed bent very specifically for a reason. Again, it has a significance of...
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Okay, folks. Got to tell everybody, you are looking at a photo of Elizabeth Short. She is on the coroner's table. There is that Glasgow smile. You see the cut out of her breast right there. Breast was removed. There is her spinal cord. Literally, her spinal cord is sticking out. And the rest of her body is sitting there. The eerie thing about this photo, and I didn't notice it until yesterday. Look at her hand. Yeah. She almost looks like she's grabbing the gurney. It's very, very bizarre. If you want to understand what a Glasgow smile is or a Chelsea smile, it's gruesome. You're taking a look at it up close and personal. That woman's whole face was bashed inside out.
I got a question for you.
Sure.
Were her teeth removed or anything at all?
There were teeth missing. There
So
were teeth missing.
I find it interesting that,
She had 6 teeth missing.
yeah, the body was scrubbed clean. Her genitals were mutilated. You know,
Mhm.
even her. I mean, it looks like they took her cheeks out. You couldn't even swab her cheeks for any type of
No.
material. There's nothing there.
Yeah. Well, if you assume, Karen, that her cheeks are upper right,
Right.
next to her eye, it doesn't leave much room for a cheek for sure.
Yeah, there's nothing there. I mean, it seemed like the person that would have done this, they knew exactly what to remove, what to take out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You are now looking at an actual photo from the crime scene. There you see her spinal column
Mhm.
exposed. You see the breast removed, one breast removed. Actually, not even the breast. They
Just
took
the
they cut off
skin
the
part of
entire
it.
nipple.
Mhm,
The
Yeah.
other breast is there.
mhm.
Again, she's placed like this with her hands above her head, almost as if to say, I quit or I give up.
Or like you were saying, Angela, like she had been put upside down, and the blood was
Yeah.
draining down.
It's very ritualistic. It's a
Mhm.
very sadistic pose.
hmm
This is a very, very graphic photo. If you are listening on radio, be thankful you are. But I have to now describe what you're seeing. This is the lower extremity of the Black Dahlia. Her entire vaginal area had been cut out. There are literally knife and razor marks randomly all over, but there is no blood there. Above the vaginal area was and I hate to get graphic with you folks, but it was a distended penis. She was a hermaphrodite. That's been proven factually by the police. It was never released at the time, but we know now, all these many years later, 70 plus years later, 80, it's been a long time, that
75 years ago.
Elizabeth Short was, in fact, a hermaphrodite born with both sex organs.
I think that's a little weird because it's too high up for that to be possible.
That's why I say she had a distended penis. It came out.
Right.
It was almost as if just below her belly button, really. And
Right.
that's where we're talking about. Yeah. And so again, you're looking at an actual photo. It's frightening to think that this is a human being, and what somebody did to her. But the facts in this case are the facts. What we don't know, again, it's you can say what you know. We can see what we know. What we don't know: who done it, why they done it, and why did they place her in that very specific position. They went to the trouble of opening her legs and placing her hands above her head. You got to ask yourself the question, why? Why do that?
Exactly.
What's to gain? Somebody, if you're looking at this now in 2022, that picture sends a message. The message is, put together the pieces of this puzzle and you'll find me. They didn't understand that back in 1947. Perhaps somebody watching this can solve this case. Put together the pieces of this puzzle.
Yes. And Mr. Hodel left a lot of clues because,
Yeah.
lo and behold, yes, he fled the country. And guess where he fled to? The Philippines.
Yeah.
That's another question mark right there.
And that's how she was found.
Yes.
Again, there is at the place where she was found today in 2022, there is a plaque there. It was placed there in 1993. It is still there to this day. And it has a short biography. She was born July 29, 1924. She lived at 115 Salem Street. The site now occupied by the Interstate 93 Rotary. She attended Medford High School, blah, 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 all this other stuff. On January 15th, her severed and mutilated body was discovered in a vacant Los Angeles lot. Newspapers, books, and magazines, motion pictures, yada, yada, have been written. Slaying of Medford's, they're claiming her. The slaying of Medford's Black Dahlia continues to remain a mystery. Medford Historical Society, 1993. And so that's pretty gruesome stuff. Let's get into the roundtable now. Let's talk in depth a little bit about Dr. George Hodel. The guy, the very nice man by all accounts, very intelligent, very articulate, incredibly likable. He looks like a piece of shit in that photo that you see with her. He looks like a controlling Svengali, but they say that he was a very sweet, nice, cordial, affable guy. What do you make of that, Milia?
Well, I mean, when you, let's see, not really a nice guy to me, especially if,
well, don't be
you're-
shy. Tell me what you think.
well, I mean, his daughter accused him of sexual molestation. For
Exactly.
One.
Well, go
So
ahead.
to
There you
me,
go.
that's not a nice guy.
That's
for
you're
one.
getting into what I want you to talk about. Go ahead.
No
There
way.
you go.
No. That guy could
Let's
rot in
talk
jail for all I
about
care.
this sweet, affable guy. They say
No.
he was sweet and wonderful and nice guy, but Amelia points out facts.
No.
He tried to rape his daughter.
I think he did. I don't think he tried. I think he did.
I think he did too, based on the testimony she gave.
Absolutely. And he got away with it.
Of course he did. You know why?
another
Because
thing-
money talks and bullshit
Oh, yeah.
walks.
And he killed the secretary.
He
Absolutely.
I believe, well, here's the thing. I believe he did,
Absolutely.
but there's no proof that he did.
Well, other than
But
testimony
based
that can be
on
proven.
what he said,
Yes.
based on what he said,
And the police had his room surveillanced as well.
here you go. Here's what he said. George Hodel was overheard telling someone, realized there was nothing I could do. Put a pillow over her head,
That-
cover her with a
her
blanket, get a
blanket.
taxi. Hold on, Amelia.
Yeah.
Expired 12:59. Expired is the term he used. He didn't say she died at 12:59. He said expired 12:59. They thought there was something fishy. Anyway, now they may have figured it out. Killed her, quote unquote. He continued to say, supposing I did kill the Black Dahlia, they couldn't prove it now. They can't talk to my secretary anymore because she's dead. He made sure they couldn't speak to his secretary.
Exactly. Yeah, she's dead anyway, so they can't talk to her.
Even after this, Karen, I want you to comment on this. Even after this shocking revelation, which seems to support that George Hodel killed Elizabeth Short and possibly his secretary, the Black Dahlia case still hasn't been officially closed. However, this hasn't stopped Steve Hodel from investigating his father. He's still investigating his father in absentia. His father has been long dead now, but he's still in 2022 investigating his dead father. This guy knows something that no other human being knows. He's got something, some piece of evidence, Karen Rayner, some piece of tidbit of information, some hidden gem. He's got something. What does he have?
You're asking me.
Yes, I am.
I was actually just reading a little bit about a Lloyd Wright house that he bought,
Yes.
which is kind of cool. And I didn't know that he was a VD doctor. So he was
Yes.
the guy that everybody went to, and he had afforded him this Frank Lloyd, right house.
Yep.
And it
Absolutely.
has it's kind of cool. I'm looking at all of this cool stuff, but there was passageways and all sorts of stuff going on.
Oh, this
This
guy was into some crazy stuff. Let me tell you something.
yes, yes,
George Hodel was an outside the box kind of guy. That's
yes.
why I think he's the guy, because everything screams outside the box on this case. It had to be done, perpetrated by a guy that was just on the fringe enough to get away with what he was doing, but still a part of the community and a well respected member of the community that no one would suspect him. Even the police liked him.
Oh, yes. Enough to where he could get away with it and still go on with his little married life, go back to the Philippines, come to the United States, do his little doctor stuff that he had to do, conventions,
Yeah,
go
he
back to the
used to go back and
Philippines.
forth, Amelia, to the
Mhm.
Philippines and
Yeah.
back.
And Philippines. And remember that you were saying earlier, rituals, Philippines,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
everything. Come back, do what he had to do,
They're
and go back.
very traditional, very ritualistic.
Exactly.
They still practice Santeria.
Yes, they always, and especially in Africa, like you were saying, and all that, and they bring it here. And so I have a strong feeling that his son hit the nail on the head. And of course, he can't prove it. He went back to the LAPD and went to the district attorney, said, "Look,
Right.
I got more proof." But the district attorney said, "See the cases right there
Well,
that are still unsolved? I got proof right there."
let me comment
They
on that since
follow that.
you mentioned
Mhm.
that. Karen, you lived in LA at the time that Stephen Kay was the district attorney there. And Stephen Kay, who is still very much alive, but no longer the district attorney of Los Angeles, Stephen Kay promised Steve Hodel, if you get me more information on your father and you can prove that he's the Dahlia, I'll use my pull to reopen the case. Well, it's 2022 and that case still hasn't been reopened. Despite the fact that Stephen Kay is no longer the district attorney of Los Angeles, do you think he was out of line making that kind of verbose statement? It's kind of out there. What do you think? Talk to me.
If it's the same DA or a district attorney that I'm thinking of, his daughter was quite the wild party animal and a shithead.
That's her. Yeah.
Okay.
That's her.
Yeah, she was a thief. But anyway, that's a whole other story. Yeah, she was
You
something
catch me
else.
with liquid in my mouth, woman.
I'm sorry,
Oh.
but I remember her, and she was a freaking thief.
Mm.
Anyway,
Spew my water out all over my studio here. Jeez.
listen, I got a lot of Hollywood stories, but that's like a whole other book or something. But
Yes. Well, let me tell you, speaking of Hollywood, I told Amelia today, and I'll share this with you. We are going to do a part 2 of the Black Dahlia on October the 27th. And we are going to have a representative of the Los Angeles Police Department with us. Because, as I confirmed it today, the Black Dahlia case is still open, active, and being investigated in 2022. Somebody got a hold of this case and reopened it. Not that it's ever been closed, but it's been called a cold case. It's no longer a cold case. It is an active, warm case that's being pursued. Karen, your thoughts as we close out this episode?
So I'm reading a little more about Hodel, and I stated in the beginning that I think that it was definitely a ritualistic type of thing. Coupled with the Frank Lloyd house after the accusation from his daughter. He had stated, and I'm going to quote this because I think it's hilarious. He was delving into the mystery of love in the universe because he used to host little orgies and all of that. He was the epicenter of secrecy when it came to being a Hollywood doctor. It's kind of like Larry Flint. Larry Flint had doctors on payrolls, and they would come and bring him some dope and he'd hand him a stack of cash, and
so did Elvis.
Oh yeah.
Right. I mean, and that's just, some of the things. I mean, shit, Rick had somebody come to the back door at the bathroom, and give him a bad check. But it was just, it's just interesting. He was, the person that comes to mind is like an Aleister Crowley type, to be honest with you. He was smart. He was good looking. He had, multiple wives, and he had money, and he had some power there because he was that go-to guy. And I'm sure, the VD was running rampant over there.
Well, it's interesting you say that, bringing up the Crowley reference. There were people who believed that the Dahlia was the victim of an early LA cult.
So we didn't mention that there was BD carved into her leg.
Right. And you're gonna actually, actually, you're going to see. Let's take a look at it. I think you can see it on.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing.
Forward through it. Hold up. I'm going to forward through it. Because you're going to see, I believe you can see it in the photos. Come on, where are we at? Okay. You're going to start, I believe. Here we go. All right, come on. That's the body as it was found.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Couldn't.
Okay. That's the mortuary photo. That's the Glasgow smile. Okay, you're going to see her lower extremities. Okay. It would have been, Karen, if I'm not mistaken, it would have been the right leg. I'm sorry, the right leg, and it would have been right around mid-thigh, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know if you can see it on here. I can barely make it out, but I think that I can actually see it. Can you make it out on there?
I can't, but another thing that comes to mind is who actually was the one that said she was a hermaphrodite.
Los Angeles Police Department.
I don't believe whatever the Los Angeles Police Department say or whoever's on the payroll doing that. I still believe that is too high. It doesn't work that way, but this is definitely a ritualistic thing. I don't care what they wrote, honestly.
Yeah, that's the police file.
Yeah, but they can do a lot of that. I mean, look at OJ.
Well, true. I mean, I can own. Look, I'm not going to call the LAPD wrong.
Right.
What I am going to say is that there are infinite possibilities with this case. There really are. That's why I warned people.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I warned people ahead of time on this because this was and still is quite a divisive case. It is also a brutal, just from a human standpoint, it's a brutal case.
Yes.
Understand something, that when you're talking about such a high profile visibility that you're seeing this body come up on you in public, it's a fight or flight mentality at this point. You're a woman walking with her kid. Do you run from the scene or do you stay there, make observations, take notes in your head? Because nobody had a cell phone or camera back in the day. We just remembered what we saw. It's etched into our brain, and okay, Now I'm going to find a way to call the police. The woman walked. Remember them pay phones? They used to have them.
Right.
You know.
You know what?
Luckily, go ahead, Karen.
I just had a little. Have you guys ever seen Eyes Wide Shut?
Absolutely, Tom Cruise.
Okay. So it kind of reminded me of that with that movie Eyes Wide Shut.
Mm-hmm.
There was a gentleman. His name was Red Manley. Okay, Red. And he was a typical. I call them pimps because what it is they will find girls and they will bring the girls to the talent agents. Okay, the talent agents pay them a little bit of money, so on and so forth. That's how I met my ex-husband. So the thing is that you know, she was staying at the Biltmore. She was going to be going back to Boston with her sister.
Oh,
she was someone that was absolutely insignificant in Hollywood. She was the perfect person to just snatch up, use for ritualistic purposes, and then dump her body. You know? And he also strikes me as someone that, he didn't have anything to do with it. That's why he passed his lie detectors. But he brought those girls, man, and they're still doing stuff like that.
Karen, you and I know Los Angeles pretty well. I know a corner. I'm not going to mention the corner. There is a corner on Hollywood Boulevard where Greyhound buses turn this corner. You know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to don't mention the street. But Greyhound buses turn this corner every day with Hollywood hopefuls. These young, starry-eyed men and women, boys and girls, I should say. And they're not men and women. They're kids.
Right.
They go to Hollywood. They're going to be the next James Dean. They're going to be the next, Sharon Tate. They're going to be the next whomever. Interesting I said those two names. Both dead.
Right.
But that's how many of them end up. They end up dead. And a lot of them come in a $100,000 bus and leave, on two broken soles and a thumb.
The funny thing is, when I wanted to go to LA, I remember it was Motley Crue, and it was girls video, right?
Yeah.
And back then, I was like 98. And I was like, shit, I want to go to LA. And so I did. I got on a bus, dumped a boyfriend, took my last paycheck, got on a bus, ended up in LA.
Yeah.
And I remember going to all those places that was in the song, like, the Body Shop, the Rainbow Room. I went to the Seventh Veil. The Seventh Veil was all Ukrainian girls. And it was all, human trafficking.
Yep, sure was.
I mean, it was a hot spot, and that's just the way it was.
Los Angeles was and still is the sex traffic capital of the world. It really, really is.
Well, that's what it's built on, and you've got a lot of stuff right now. I mean,
that's what I said. Yep, that's what I said when Amelia mentioned earlier in the show. Perhaps the motive was financial. I said no, it's sexual. Hollywood built on sex. The whole town.
That's how the small majority, the small amount that there's a certain powers that be. And those are the ones, that's how they control everything around them. Now, right now, I mean, we have this whole Me Too thing coming out where you've got, the Sharon Stones, all of the older actresses saying, hey, screw you. And you've got a couple of sacrificial lambs. But it doesn't mean that it's still not happening. It's a male-dominated business. It really always has been, and the casting couch is still very much alive.
We had a guy on the show. We had a guy. We had a guy on the show. He's a friend of mine. He's a friend of the show, Jeffrey Mark. Jeffrey Mark is a flamboyant homosexual performer. He's very proud to be a gay man, and I'm proud of him. Jeffrey knows a lot of the insiders. Jeffrey will tell you that Hollywood was built on gay Jewish men.
Oh, yeah.
That's what Hollywood was built on.
Oh, yeah.
Gay Jewish men. Lots of money, lots of aphrodisiac, Their aphrodisiac is sex, money, rock and roll before there was rock and roll.
Right.
Drugs, it's always been drugs. There were drugs back then. It's not a new thing, kids. I got news for you. It's not.
Now, the good shit was back then. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
the
No
pharmaceutical
kidding.
grade.
Oh yeah, big time, big time. Well, I want to tell everybody, we've got an incredible week coming up. I have
Yes.
got on Tuesday the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez.
Yes.
We will uncover
Awesome.
the motive behind the Night Stalker. Some of his killings, of course, he took credit for most of them, but surprisingly, and again, the mindset of the serial killer, he's not going to take credit for something he didn't do. Even though there are a half a dozen crimes, murders in the LA area that are being attributed to him, he says, no, man, I didn't do that. That's not my work. We're going to get into the mind of the serial killer on Thursday with Dr. Anthony Tobiah. And Dr. Tobiah is the associate professor of psychiatry at Rutgers University here in New Jersey. He is an incredible person, fascinating individual to speak to. And he will bring one of his interns with him on the show. So we will have Dr. Tobiah and associate next Thursday, and we will talk about Tuesday, Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. And I'll tell you what, we've got some hellacious shows coming. We're going to take a little break, though. We're going to take a little break from the gruesome, and gore to bring back the writer's room for a week. Amelia, tell everybody about the writer's room. Who's coming on with us?
Yes, we're going to have Alistair Cross, and we're going to have his other writing partner. We're going to have
Tamara
Thord, and they're actually what they've done.
You little shit.
No, because actually I was going to be telling you guys that they both decided to, how gas prices are going up and everything because of the economy.
Yeah.
They actually decided to discount some of their books. So I think we're going to be talking a little bit about that as well.
Terrific.
Yeah.
We will also have author D.W. Emer on the show, his new book, The Satan Gene. Fascinating book. It is a mixture of novel / historical fiction / reality. There's a lot of
definitely.
It's a big book, I gotta tell you.
Absolutely.
And then we are going to do a special episode that I'm laying on you guys tonight because I found out something today, and there's something in the works here. We are going to revisit Paul McCartney. Is Paul McCartney dead?
Oh, good.
As many people think. Is Billy Shears a real person? Is his name Billy Shepherd? And is he Paul today? 83-year-old Paul McCartney. Had Paul lived, he would not be 83. He'd be 79. Because Billy is actually 4 years, maybe 5 years older than Paul was. Interestingly enough, I want you to do this. You got some homework. Everybody's got homework. I want you to watch The Magical Mystery Tour.
Okay.
In that film, Paul McCartney, when asked, said he was 30 years old. Okay? At the time he said that, biological Paul McCartney would have been 25 years old. Okay? Important to know that. Everything changed for the Beatles in 1966. Look at the Revolver album. Look at Sgt. Pepper. Look at Abbey Road. Everything changed. They went from being bubblegum pop to being influenced by, I'll just show you right now on Sgt. Pepper. Aleister Crowley is on the cover. So is the only American rock star on the album cover is Dion from Dion and the Belmonts. Okay? The only rock star, Dion from Dion and the Belmonts, Dion DiMucci, who I was fortunate enough, I actually sang on stage with Dion. That's true. Absolutely true story.
You know, Jimmy Page bought Aleister Crowley's house.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Jimmy Page also had some horrific stories to tell about that place too.
Yes.
I don't know if Page is a Satanist. If he is, doesn't make any difference to me anyway, because I still like his music. Always have. It's an interesting. Crowley was an interesting guy because he was fucking brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
But we are going again. We're going to talk to Dr. Tobiah on Thursday and see, is there a fine? There's a fine line. We know that between genius and insanity.
Right.
I'm going to ask Dr. Tobiah, where is that line? What constitutes that line? And is it a tightrope walk or is it a flat foot walk?
Right.
You didn't know I was that smart, did you, Karen?
No, I knew
I
you
kind
were
of had
that
an
smart.
idea.
I'm just, you know, I kind
I
of
had an
ride that
idea.
line.
Yeah, I know. I do too.
You know,
I had an
sometimes
Well, I'll
more
tell you
fun on
what,
the insane.
I want to tell everybody out there, we are welcoming your suggestions for the show. If you have comments, suggestions, show ideas, we have a chat box here on the show. People like Stephen Plim is here.
We also have a poll going
I
on
want my
too.
slaw is here.
We have
And
a
God
poll
bless
on
you,
our
Slaw,
website.
for joining us. We've got here you go. Our friend sports fan is here. All right, Kevin Abreu, he's here. We have a chat box, is what I'm showing you. So let us know if you've got some show ideas. Talk to us. We'll answer you.
Please.
Hit us up here. You can of course join us on the show live anytime you want.
Yes.
Or you can call us in at wrestlingwiththefuture@gmail.com. Email us there. We do have a phone number if you choose to use it. It's 609-389-9829. That is the show. That rings right here to the studio. And if you want to say something, you just want to talk or whatever, just give me a holler.
Right. And we also have a poll on our website at the What's the Buzz podcast.
We still have the poll up. Tell them, everybody, about it, Amelia. About that.
And we have a poll there with some suggestions. Please let us know if you don't see a suggestion there that you'd like to see. Like Angelo said, just hit him up on the phone number or his email. Or if you see something there, just click on that and we'll see what we could do to bring what you want to see. Because right now
you can reach us at wrestlingwiththefuture@gmail.com. You can reach Amelia at aachap70 at
Gmail.
I wasn't sure if it was Yahoo.
No,
Karen Rayner can't be reached because she's in hiding in an undisclosed location.
We also are on Instagram as well. And I think Angelo put it to Angelo Thomas DeCipio instead of What's the Buzz podcast. You put it under his name. Yes, you did.
Did I really?
I think so.
Well, change it back.
I certainly will.
Thank you. I didn't mean to. Did I?
That's okay. And I'm under, I think it's Amelia Texas Girl under my, let's see, the TikTok. And I think Angelo has it under What's the Buzz podcast on his TikTok. And we can
well, what did I do to my Instagram?
I think you just put it under your name, but I can fix it.
Did I really?
And we can be reached on the YouTube.
Hold on a minute. Wait a minute. Hold on. I'm going to check something out real quick because I'm looking.
And we can be reached on the YouTube channel as well.
No, it's not. It says What's the Buzz podcast.
Okay.
I know I didn't change the name.
Unless I changed it back.
I don't know what the hell you're doing in my absence, kiddo. Well, I'll tell you what. This was a great show tonight. It really was. I can't wait till October 27th. We're going to have part 2.
Absolutely.
Amelia is going to contact. We have to send them a formal request, but they said absolutely we'll do it. So she's going to send a request, interview request to LAPD, and request for that date, October 27th. The Black Dahlia Part 2. There's so much to do here. It really is. I'll tell you what, for Karen Rapid Rover Rayner, for
Wow.
For Amelia the Pitbull Chapman, I am Angelo, Mad Dog DeCipio, and take care, everybody. We'll see you next time on What's
See you
the Buzz?
next time.